This video is now in session, and the Texas Heartbeat Bill, or the 6-week ban on abortion, could seriously backfire on the Republican Party in the 2021 elections and in Texas politics. So, for the 2021 elections, the Virginia gubernatorial election and the New Jersey gubernatorial election have found new meaning because of the abortion issue, because of the Texas abortion law. And what we're seeing is a lot of activists and a lot of Democrats both angered, frustrated, and energized by the Texas abortion law. And when we look at the approval numbers and the disapproval numbers in terms of the Texas abortion law, unfortunately, we don't have any concrete poll numbers yet, but what we do have are numbers pertaining to Roe v. Wade and as well as abortion. So 58% of people believe that Roe v. Wade should not be overturned. Roe v. Wade, by the way, was the court case that legalized first trimester abortions nationwide because on the basis that banning those kinds of abortions were unconstitutional because of the Fourth Amendment. But if we're looking at this distribution, you can see that 58% say that they don't want to overturn the court case, while 32% are willing to overturn Roe v. Wade and are willing to allow a ban on first trimester abortions. And you can see here that it's a pretty big gap between those who want to overturn and those who don't want to overturn, which is why a lot of Democrats are energized in 2021 about this issue, because they see a potential for moderate voters in Virginia and moderate voters in New Jersey's who are going to vote in New Jersey state legislature elections. They see an opportunity for those voters to be guided towards the Democratic Party because of abortion, because they can now frame the Republican Party as this very far right party that is looking to essentially undermine your rights when it comes to the ability to have an abortion. And if they use that argument, if the Democrats use that argument, which they most certainly will, because the Republicans have used the same argument against Democrats, saying that the Democrats are far left, then they can make the argument. Democrats can almost definitely successfully make that argument in a lean blue state like Virginia and in a very blue state like New Jersey. So for both elections, we don't have enough data as to how this abortion issue will definitively impact the 2021 election or even the 2022 election. But these two elections in Virginia and New Jersey do provide some guidance as to how individuals will react or react into the Texas abortion law, and if that is influencing the way they vote for one party or for another party. And if we look at further polls relating to abortion, you can see that 48% of Americans support abortion under certain circumstances, and then 32% say it should be legal under any circumstance, while 19% of Americans believe that it should be illegal in all circumstances. But you can see here that this spread between 19% and essentially 80% of Americans, so 80% to 19%, it shows that a lot of Americans are still in favor of abortion, and this could be the turning point for Republicans in Texas. We're not quite sure yet, because obviously there's still a lot of time for Republicans to recover, but the Republicans in Texas have been incredibly gangster-like, or more, I guess, culturally conservative than the electoral distribution of Texas as a whole. If we look at Texas, it's becoming a more purplish state. In the 2020 election, we saw Donald Trump win by only 5.5 percentage points in Texas. But when we look at Texas law, when we look at the things that are happening in Texas, a lot of times it does not seem like it's reflecting the electorate. When we look at voting laws, doesn't reflect with the electorate, because a lot of the provisions in the voting laws are not supported by the majority of Texans. When we look at abortion, not supported by the majority of Americans, and most likely not supported by the majority of Texans. When we look at taxes and other issues, other bread and butter issues, the Republicans have moved more to the right in Texas following the 2020 election, and that could be the nail in the coffin for Republicans in Texas, because there has been the argument that Texas is turning blue, that Texas will, that it's eminent that Texas will become Democratic, and the main, I guess, precedent for this is California. California used to be Republican, the state of Ronald Reagan, the state of Richard Nixon, but it turned blue. It turned blue after Ronald Reagan, after George H.W. Bush in 1992. Bill Clinton was able to get California, and that was the nail in the coffin for that state was Proposition 187. If I can load it up, here it is. So Proposition 187 dealt with immigration and essentially made restrictive, I guess, increased restrictions on undocumented immigrants from using non-emergency healthcare, public education, and other services in the state of California. Because the demographics in California were shifted more towards Latinos, and because there were increasing amounts of undocumented citizens in California, a lot of people were angry about Proposition 187. And even though it passed, that just provided further reason for a lot of people in California to vote from Republican to Democratic, to switch from independents to Democrats, and that was how the California Democratic Party was able to flip that state in 1992 and 1996, and that was how it was able to cement California as a blue state. It was a culmination of demographic changes and as well as political changes it all culminated with Proposition 187, with one thing that caused the Democrats to win in California, to cement their lead in California. And the same thing could happen in Texas with the abortion bill. Again, it's less likely because for Texas, it's harder a state to flip since there are differences between the Texas electorate of 2021 and the California electorate of 1994. But it certainly does have potential to be the nail in the coffin for the Republican Party. If Democrats are able to energize themselves for 2022, if Beto O'Rourke is able to harness the powers that Stacey Abrams used to flip Georgia in 2020, then Texas could certainly flip for the Democratic Party because of this bill. We saw Republicans become more conservative in the 1990s in California, and that cost gravely for the Republican Party. It cost dearly for the Republican Party, and they're still, and right now Republicans are just a speckle of what it once was. And the same thing could happen in Texas. We'll have to see as more polls come in and as the 2022 election nears. But it is something that looks promising for the Democratic Party, especially when we're seeing the Democrats inundated with a lot of issues like COVID-19 and as well as the blunder that Joe Biden had on Afghanistan. So that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.